I bent the tab on the relay to give it a little bit more tension because it was tripping out too often, and now the plate fuse burned out. So if I disappear again, you'll know what it is. So yeah, we're running a BC610 Model E, and the audio equipment is an RCA 77DX ribbon mic. It goes into a Shure mic preamp, and then that goes to a gate stay level, followed by a Volumax 4300, and then the Volumax drives an VE3IKU 730 modulator, which is basically, I'm using it as a speech amplifier. That drives a pair of 810s. Well, it drives a pair of 810s when I'm using the kilowatt rack, which is another story. So right now I've got the output of the VE3IKU feeding the 100 THs on the BC610, because the internal driver on that one is not capable of modulating the 100 THs properly. So I hope the audio sounds okay. I guess I'm still on the air. The antenna is a doublet, 100-foot doublet, fed with a 600 ohm homemade open wire line. So that's the shack here, and the receiver right now is a Helicrafter's SX24 Defiant. So back to you, Paul. Oh, I just heard a little noise coming from the BC610, so we may be going off the air soon. Okay, back to you, Paul. VA3VJB from VE3IKU.
Okay, Boris. Yeah, solid transmission that time, even with the little crinkles and creaks that the BC610 is giving you there. VE3IKV, Toronto. WA3VJB right back. Nice transmission. You made it all the way through it, and it sounds good. And yes, there's that nice, smooth ribbon mic sound that comes through in all its glory. Sounds like you've taken some time to really advance your audio more than the usual. And it's, I guess it's a testament to the BC610's plate or modulation transformer. I've always heard good things about the 610's potential audio quality. And I have heard where the speech amp does need to be addressed. It's not really intended to be the kind of audio that you're delivering. But for those who take the time to tweak it, it pays off with the kind of reward I'm hearing here today. Listening to you in two different ways. One of them is the Kiwi SDR constellation, on which I can make a nice recording, air check recording. And I'm also listening here at home, where your signal's even stronger than the node that I've selected. The receiver is an ITT McKay, which is an old commercial shipping receiver, solid-state thing from about 40 years ago. And what's nice about it is that it can be easily turned on, dialed up, and set to go to see what the band's doing. It doesn't have quite the audio of the diode output of my R390A, or even its younger sister, the R390. Whoops, I have that backward. The 390 is the older one. Has the better audio quality. Or even the SP600 for that matter, that I also have here. But it's adequate, you know. It feeds a small amplified speaker on top of the rack, known as a Fostex. Very popular in television production. A full range speaker for its size. And yes, the rich warmth of your lower end response is just filling up the room here, Boris. Nice to listen to. And yeah, I was looking at the pictures while I was looking you up that you have on your QRZ.com page, and very impressive set of gear. I've got a General Radio 1931A that I use as a modulation monitor, which you're probably familiar with it. It's got two input taps. One of them takes you up through 40 meters, which among modulation monitors intended for AM broadcast band service is an unusual feature, but perfect for our use. And it's nice to see that bulb flash occasionally when I hit baseline, but not supposed to do that, so I'm playing it pretty conservatively. So let's see if you've unearthed any more problems there. I like the tension adjustment of bending the relay contact, but hopefully that doesn't just move the problem to your fuse bank. I think that has the old-style cartridge fuses that you'd have to go muster one up rather than a circuit breaker that can easily be reset. VE3IKV WA3VJB. Back to you, Boris.
Kilo Mike 4 X-ray Golf.
Yeah, WA3VJB from VE3IKU. Okay, very good, Paul. Your setup sounds great, and as I was mentioning before, I have a copy of it's a QST article from February '93, and it shows your station setup, which is very impressive. I mean, looks like a broadcast studio there. It really looks impressive. So I assume you have more or less similar gear right now. Yeah, I've always been interested in AM operation. I was licensed in '76, and my first radio was Heathkit HR10 receiver and a Cheyenne transmitter, which is a screen grid modulated AM. So I learned CW, of course, first, and worked many states with that setup and a small dipole. And then I got into collecting equipment, vintage equipment, Apache and Mohawk, and, well, you see them all there on the QRZ page. So with too many radios here, Paul, no desk space for it. So I've tried to open up different rooms fed with LMR 400 coax. I've got a electronic a remote antenna relay panel that can switch antennas and rigs. It was designed by K7MI. He owns the company Hamation, and he provides automated radio and antenna selectors. So that's come in real handy. I can pick up a laptop in another room and just log on to my remote antennas and switch a radio or antenna without having to come down to the main shack. So that's helped get other radios on the air quickly. So, but I don't operate too much. I mostly am into restoring and collecting radios, which I really enjoy. I heard another station in there. I didn't get the call, so let's bring him in. So we'll get back to that other station there from VE3IKU and WA3VJB. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was Jim, KM4XG. Are you in there, Jim?
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen. Yeah, I had a static crash right there at the end, Boris. I wasn't sure if you were handing it back to me or not. But yeah, good morning, gentlemen. Hearing you both quite well here in Virginia, in Northern Virginia this morning. Boris, this is Jim, Japan, Italy, Mexico. I'm in Herndon, Virginia, 20 west of D.C. Hearing you both quite well. Go ahead, Paul.
The greater Herndon. Good to hear you, Jim. KM4XG. That's Kilo Mike 4 X-ray Golf for your benefit there, Boris. And Jim's about, 30 miles south and west of me here at Annapolis, so we're neighbors. Well, good rundown, Boris. Yeah, I very much enjoyed looking at the pictures that you've got posted on your page. I've been licensed about as long as yourself, and I've always been in the AM part of the hobby. In the early days, novices were limited to crystal control. And right when they legalized the use of VFOs in the United States, I was getting my license and managed to get a Collins 32V2. And that, when I got my phone license, pushed me toward AM, where I've been ever since. So, it's been a very delightful ride these past 50-some-odd years. And yeah, the start-to-finish audio that you've got going there, I know Jim will agree. He's got an ear for that. It really sounds nice. I will pull this out, this one little characteristic of yours. It sounds like there's a mechanically coupled transformer noise. It's not coming through on your basic carrier electrically. It sounds like a mechanically coupled hum. Almost like a fluorescent light, you know, where they buzz a little bit. But it could very well be the Beastie 610 putting something out. So let me kick it back to you to introduce yourself to Jim there. VE3IKU. I might have said V. I've changed my handwriting here a little bit. Go ahead, Boris. WA3VJP.
WA3VJB and KM4XG from VE3IKU. Okay, Paul, very good. Yeah, there's a relay in the BC610 that hums. If I drop the carrier and come back, it might settle in a slightly different position. Let's see if it makes a difference here. Yeah, it should be a little quieter. I'm also rotating the DX77 mic so that the side of it is pointing to the BC610. Should be a little bit lower in level. I am running a compressor, of course, so there's obviously high gain here in the audio chain. Yeah, okay, so let's pass it to KM4XG, Jim, and see what he has to say this morning. Hopefully the weather's going to get cooler for you guys. So KM4XG with VA3VJB from VE3IKU in Toronto.
Wow, you sound terrific. The way you say that. VE3IKU Toronto. I mean, that sounds really broadcast. Yeah, that's terrific. Well, you sound good here, Boris. Both you sound excellent. It's a pleasure tuning in this morning. Just accidentally happened to be here. I was up all night, couldn't sleep. I'm having that trouble, you know, as I get older. I'm really not that old. I don't know if I should have that problem, but I think it's old retired fart syndrome, where you need a clock that tells you the day of the week, because I'm often confused about what day of the week it is. And so, yeah, that's the story here. Just checking in to say howdy. Let you know I was copying the mail and enjoying every moment. Back up to you there, Paul. WA3VJB and the esteemed group KM4XG.
KM4XG. And the group WA3VJB. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Jim, when he passed his call letters over. It almost sounded like CBO Toronto on the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. I wonder if you've got any broadcast background there, Boris. You manage your voice in such a way that suggests you've been on the radio professionally as well as here on among hobbyists. I have a background in that myself, and I often kind of get self-deprecating because I can't do anything about it at this point, but I know my voice management over the years comes through on the air, and Jim kind of makes fun of me too. Well, you don't make fun of me, but you point it out, and I get self-conscious about it. That's mostly what it's about. But you know, when I was first coming through radio, Jim, I may have told you this story. There was a thing called a boss jock. If you were a DJ at some of the United stations, there was this very stylized, personality-heavy radio format, top 40, and they called the announcers screamers, boss jock. And in the negative sense, they were often called vomit voices because they had this kind of thing at their throat that sounded like they were sick. And if, you know, a variation of that was to be called a puker in much the same way. So somebody would point out, you know, I've got a voice for radio or something like that, and I'd get self-conscious about it, and I would go into the vomit voice mode. I'd say, yes, that's right, I've been on the radio. And come home in the evenings and say, hi, honey, what's for dinner? Leftovers again? Well, that's okay. It's kind of a way of being sarcastic about the whole scene, Boris, but by way of saying I appreciate the sound of your voice, as does Jim. And I used to listen to CBL Toronto, which was this time of year on standard time when the rest of the East Coast was on daylight savings time. And they used to sign off at, I think, 11 o'clock, which was midnight. And they'd play the Canadian national anthem, and I'd, you know, have a little transistor radio or something. It's like, wow, I'm hearing a whole nother country, and it was just a very cool thing. CBL Toronto, I think they were on 740, and they used to make a nice signal all the way down the East Coast when I was living in the southeastern corner of Virginia. So yeah, when you handed it over, Boris, that's what all came back to Jim in one way and myself in another. VE3IKU, WA3VJB with the group. Go ahead, Boris.
Yeah, WA3VJB from VE3IKU with KM4XG. Yeah, Paul, that's an interesting story about radio announcers' voices. I'm just close talking the mic here just to make sure that I'm getting a good Well, a good frequency response out of it. The closer you talk to the mic, the lower the frequencies become. I don't really have a low-pitched voice, so I'm sort of simulating some kind of a broadcast quality with equalization and such. 740, yeah, is now CFZM Zoomer radio, but they're doing strange things with the carrier. The carrier level changes depending on whether there's modulation or not. They're trying to save a few pennies. A lot of stations here have lowered power. I don't know if they've changed their antennas or they're just using lower power transmitters. A lot of the Toronto stations are not as strong as they used to be. And in the case of CFZM, I think the carrier drops. Some stations have the carrier go up and then it drops with modulation. In this case, it drops when there's no modulation and it goes up with modulation. But even that, on my SDR here, I've got an ANAN 7000, and the signal strength is like 10 dB lower. That's what it appears to be from what it was in the winter. So I don't know what's going on. I haven't changed anything here, so I can't explain it. But yes, the glory days of AM broadcasting, you know, the top 40 powerhouses in the 70s, that I missed that time. It was great. We had 1050 chum here, 1050 kilohertz. They had a clear channel all throughout North America. It was great those days. So back to you, Jim. KM4XG with VA3VJB in the group from VE3IKU in Toronto.
Yeah, well done. This is KM4XG, Radio Free Fairfax, Herndon, Virginia. Oh, that's great. Oh, I remember the glory days. Yeah, I remember those days quite well.
Herndon.
Yes, I'm sorry. I should have said beautiful downtown Greater Herndon. I actually include that in my shtick. I don't know why I didn't include it here today, but you're absolutely right. You know, I had this in honor of those funny talking shock radio guys. No, actually, I have a shtick that I go through when I call CQ, because I don't want to just sit there and go CQ. So I've very carefully developed a sort of a shtick that I go through, and if by the time I get to the end of it, if nobody has answered, then that means nothing's going on. So yeah, it's probably about 3 minutes long, I guess. But fantastic, fine business. Yeah, beautiful downtown, Greater Herndon, Virginia, United States, planet Earth. Oh, I love it. This is what makes AM so much fun. You know who I really miss listening to talk about boss jocks? Casey Kasem's American Top 40. Man, he was awesome. I don't know. Is he still among the living? Paul, I don't know. WA3VJB, KM4XG in the group.
Nah, he's been gone a while now. I don't remember when, but yeah, American Top 40 was one of the last nationally distributed programming shows for, I guess, both AM and FM broadcast. Because then the formats of commercial broadcasting became so fractured and splintered that Top 40, which was Casey Kasem, didn't really have the critical mass to sustain itself anymore. In other words, the records that were charting, you know, on the popularity list were not as monolithic as a Top 40 format would suggest. So in many cases, a radio station wouldn't want to play a country song or a rap song or some other genre of music that didn't fit their usual programming. And the end was near for a Casey Kasem show as a result, because that was based on sales figures. And I guess they could have kind of synthesized their version of it and continued the program, but I think for as many years as it ran, it was probably about done anyway. But the changing nature of commercial broadcast is what finally did it in. There are some bloopers from Kasem's show that are worth finding on YouTube if you haven't already seen or heard them. he apparently was a fairly volatile character. And if things didn't go exactly the way he'd planned, he'd fly off the handle. And of course they were rolling tape at the time, and some of that escaped from the studio during production and became celebrated blooper tapes. And I remember even before the internet, some of those tapes were circulating around. And we'd quote them back and forth, just little pieces of it as a reference. And it became pretty well known inside the business. and then, of course, the internet distributes everything, and there it is. Boris, I meant to comment on your SX-24, the Skyrider. Hopefully you've got that delivered into some kind of external audio system with a good loudspeaker on it, because you can hear Jim has taken care with the sound of his audio. He's absolutely dead quiet. In times past recently, Jim, you've had some hum on there, and you fixed that. It's gone now. And Jim, I don't know if you were listening when Boris was first describing his radio station layout, but he's got a gate stay level on there as well. It's bringing up his compression a little bit. It's not severe, nor is the preponderance of bass as you close talk the ribbon mic, Boris. And there's a difference between having low-end response in your voice and being able to manage the intonation pattern. I didn't hear whether you actually have any background in commercial broadcasting or voiceover work or what have you, but there are only a few things available to a professional voice. One of them is pacing, the other is intonation, and the third is loudness. And of course, loudness tends to get squashed by the dynamic processing of the back room at a radio station. So that's taken away from it, even though the timbre of your voice will change depending on how loudly you are forcing the air through your vocal cords. But that's a pretty subtle difference. So what's really left is intonation, where you have this kind of a musical cadence to the words you wish to emphasize. And pacing, like the gap I just put in there. And that's where the carrier conveys a lot of information on AM that used to be disputed in the technical textbooks as the carrier has no information. Well, yeah, it does. And I like to beat on that point in our conversation today, because it does deliver information about pacing and punctuation that's not available on incomplete modes. So, Boris, you might tell us a little bit more about your background, that you've become so aware of the audio quality that you're able to deliver there. Sounds very nice. VE3IKU, KM4XG, close to the top of the hour. This is VA3VJB Annapolis.
Yeah, VA3VJB with KM4XG, and this is VE3IKU. Very good, Paul. Jim, I just wanted to comment. You have an excellent signal here. You came up to about 15/9 on that last transmission. An excellent audio, as Paul pointed out. It sounds great. And don't worry about getting old. We're all getting old, and you and I forget sometimes what day of the week it is, and I need a lot of sleep. So I don't know why I need so much sleep lately, but I do. So I'm always tired. So I don't know. I'll have to have that checked out. Anyway, Paul, yeah, my background is electrical engineer with Motorola here in Canada. I design commercial radios for the police, ambulance services, and Desert Storm. We had in Iraq, we had an encrypted mobile radio in a backpack that we designed there. So I was responsible for the receivers, the front end, and worked on VHF, UHF radios. I also did some handheld work, the Radius AP10. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's sort of like a family radio, but it's like 136 to 174, and then there's another model 430 to 470. So I was responsible for the receivers on those radios. So we used a lot of HP CAD systems for design, simulation, Monte Carlo analysis with component variations to see how the circuits would actually behave during production variations. We had a big factory here in Toronto. We were at one point producing 1,000 radios a week. But that factory's long gone. Everything's changed. So those were the glory days, 60s, 70s, 80s. Hopefully there'll be some nice things coming in the future. So we'll see. The U.S. and Canada are intrinsically tied together as far as economies are concerned. So hopefully there are some good days coming ahead, if you know what I mean. So that's my background. I'm also working on another project, sort of supporting NASA in the Lunar Gateway project. I've got a large dish I built. It's a European dish from RF Ham Design. It's a 3-meter dish, and it's on what frequency is it? 2034. What is it here? I forget. Anyway, it's not on the regular bands. 2304 megahertz, and I can actually get an echo back from the moon, sending about 600-700 watts from that dish, which has a 30 dB gain, and I'm getting a signal that's about 10 to 15 dB above the noise floor. So that's a very interesting little side project that I'm working on there. So Jim, you take it to KM4XG in the group with VA3VJB. This is VE3IKU in Toronto.
Yeah, real good. VE3IKU with VA3VJB KM4XG. That's awesome. We could talk for hours. I'm an engineer also, engineering background. I started out as a TV repairman, and when I retired, I was a systems engineer for IP over satellite constellation. I mean, I've had it from soup to nuts, from A to Z, 47 years in the electronics business, one fashion or another. And boy, what a ride it's been. Yeah, I'm sure we've got a lot of common interests and experiences. Cool on Motorola, my favorite radios. I mean, built like a tank. Had quite a few of them, used quite a few of them commercially. Used to use them on the job, and they were tough as nails. You could drop one off of a antenna tower and have some reasonable expectation that it would still work when you picked it back up again. Yeah, man. One time I had a Motorola Hurricane radio, little VHF set that looked like it was built into a ammo can. The ammo can was a battery compartment containing, I believe it was 11 primary cells, if I'm not mistaken. If I remember correct, it had a cute little antenna that plugged in off the back of it, and a little microphone that had a microphone clip that was actually the switch for the radio. So anytime you put the mic back in the clip, it would switch the radio off. And I called it my Hurricane radio because it would run forever. On those 11 D cells, I mean, it would run a long, long time. So it was a great little rig. I don't have it anymore. Yeah, thanks for the report too, Boris. I'm running a pretty simple setup here. The mic is a large diaphragm from, it's a condenser from Audio-Technica, the 4030. That's going to Mackie 1604, which is a mixer. And then it's being routed to a DBX 1066, which is a little one rack unit stereo compressor, limiter, noise gate, all in one. They're really popular with musicians, that's why I have it, along with the rest of this gear. I used to have a band. I used to be in that kind of thing as a hobby, so that's the scoop here. Running an SB220, pair of 3500s, currently glowing brightly in the orange part of the spectrum, producing about 300 watts at the moment, going into a properly designed and constructed G5 RV, at about 50 feet. And that's the situation here, Boris. Back up to you, Paul. VA3VJB and the delightful group, KM4XG.
Yeah, KM4XG. And VE3IKU. On Canadian Crap Out Day. This is WA3VJB. You called me a VA3, VE3. But that's okay. I like Canada. Oh, Canada. And yeah, I agree with Jim. Excellent background you've got there, Boris. Wow. My first experience with Motorola of Canada was the little MCX100 mobile rig. It uses EEPROMs for frequency and PL. And although I located someone who's got the little suitcase programmer for EEPROMs and a handful of EEPROMs to do so, I need to send the radio off to him to make sure his programming does well. I just haven't done it. I've still got the radio. It's a cool, nice-looking radio. And made in Motorola of Canada. And I wonder if you have ever connected with Motorola in Fort Lauderdale for any of your NASA-related projects. Years ago, when the space shuttle was still flying, there was a thing called Ham in Space, Shuttle Amateur Radio Experiment, SAREX. And they had a customized MX340 handheld Motorola that was pretty cool. And that was done down at Motorola Fort Lauderdale. And even before that, back when I first got my phone license, I had a Motorola Chicago HT220. Actually, a series of them. I love the little radio. Point-to-point wiring, discrete components, very little printed circuit. Well, there's some, but a lot of discrete components, no surface mount. And I still have one of the fairly unusual marine band HT220s with selectable 1 watt, 5 watt power and 6 channels. Very expensive radio back when the American Marine Band on FM first came in. Nobody was going to buy a radio like that for a pleasure craft, and commercial shipping would have a full-size console-type radio, so there weren't very many of them ever made. But for amateur use, of course, they were ideal, because if you were close to the repeater, you wouldn't have to burn your battery up quite so quickly by simply selecting 1 watt instead of 5. And that came from a regulation that suggested using only 1 watt in the harbor and up to 25 watts out on the open water to minimize interference. So in order to comply with that, to get type acceptance, Motorola came up with a little selectable high-low power scheme for their otherwise 10-watt amplifier in the handheld, fit in the extended sleeve of the HT220. Fascinated condensed amount of stuff inside the housing, but still a cool radio from the past. And I had another thing in here too. I can't read my handwriting. Oh yes, the February 93 QST. I'm waxing the transmitter. Yes, I still have that transmitter, the Collins 300G. And Pam and I went ahead and got married in 1994. We're celebrating this August our 30th anniversary. And she's the girl I was talking with in that little sidebar article, Boris, of I'm waxing the transmitter. And Jim, what she was talking about is the article that says, what do you do on a weekend when it's raining out? And I called Pam on the phone and I said, oh, I'm waxing the transmitter, which opened up a whole other aspect of our getting to know one another. There was this 1,100-pound beast downstairs in the rec room that she had to become aware of. Hey, come on. Quit talking while I'm talking. If you want to join us, you can. Otherwise, kindly hold it to the side. But yeah, that article's been kicking around for a while, and for many people back in 1993 was an introduction to this part of the hobby, Boris. On 80 meters, I always enjoyed listening to your countrymen down in the 3700 range of the phone band. I think one of your popular frequencies is 3705, which, when the FCC in the United States expanded access to that area for phone licensees, Many of us on AM gravitated downwhere, partly as a hat tip to our Canadian compadres on AM, and partly because there's a lot more elbow room compared to the more usual watering holes up higher in the band. So if you have any 80-meter capability, you might very well find us there as well. And I'll usually be on that very Collins that you see in that old article there, Boris. So over to you, and stand by in case someone does want to join us. VE3IKU with KM4XG on the side for VA3GFY.
VA3VJB and KM4XG with VE3IKU. Well, Paul, when you mentioned MCX 100, boy, you brought back the nostalgia days for me. That was the first radio I was working on at Motorola. It was at the height of its production. That was 1981, and I was in the manufacturing engineering department building test fixtures for the factory to test various PCBs that were installed in that radio. So yeah, that brings back great memories. I actually had an MCX 100 here, but I sold it. I think I sold it to get a General Radio, what is it here, 619, which is a heterodyne detector. It's actually a nice regenerative receiver that can be used on, from, I guess, low band, very low frequencies, 30 kilohertz and up. Okay. Paul and Jim, I'm going to say 73. I've got work to do here, something that needs attention at the house. I got some contractors coming, and I need to pay attention to that. So, Jim, Paul, I'm going to say 73. Thank you very much for a wonderful QSO this morning. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon. WA3VJB with KM4XG. This is VE3IKU listening, and then we'll sign off.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, well, I hope you'll come back again for too long. I heard you say that you're not on that often, that you enjoy repairs and restoration, perhaps with your available time. It's been my pleasure, and there's plenty more we can work over, too. A lot of common interest there, as Jim pointed out, that we'd like to bring you out on. So please don't be a stranger. Up here at the top of 40, as you can see, there's another QSO that's fired up on 76 or 77 on AM. And then right up to the top of the band, you'll find us on here, and as well as on 80 meters there late in the day. Take care. I'll kick it over to Jim real quick here to say 73. Hope your home improvement project with the contractors goes well. And please don't be a stranger there, of course. It's been my pleasure to talk with you. KM4XG to take it, WA3VJP.
Yeah, same here, Boris. The pleasure's been on this end for sure. And don't be a stranger. I'm going to look for you again. 3IKU and KM4XG, 73.
73. Thank you very much for a great QSO.
Yeah, I feel the same. Very satisfying. Thanks for answering my CQ and certainly bearing with us here on Canadian Crap Out Day. You missed that, Jim. He had a crap out, and then the guy I worked VA3 in Ottawa, he had a crap out on receive. So it's like, man, all these guys are ghosting me here.
It must be the sunspot.
Could be. That could be. Who was down frequency? Did you spin down there and see who that was?
No, I didn't. I saw him come up, but I didn't tune down.
That's okay. Yeah, I don't know. I have the same, I don't call it a problem, though, of being aware of what day of the week it is. You know, now that I'm kicked back, every day is a weekend. That's the way you need to look at it, Jim.
Well, yeah, I kind of do. I mean, every day is Saturday, you know. That's why I lose track of what day of the week it is.
Well, yeah. Unless you've got an appointment or something, who cares?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when my mother retired, I gave her a clock. It didn't have numbers. It had days of the week. And she just laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. It was the funniest damn thing.
That made me laugh. I've never seen that. That's wonderful. I've seen the ones that all say happy hour or something like that.
Yeah, man, genuine Spencer Gifts, joke gift, Have you ever been to Spencer Gifts? I'm getting ready to make another trip to my local Spencer Gifts down here at the mall. I'm going to pick up another lava lamp.
Man, that takes me back. When I was growing up in Virginia Beach, there was a Spencer Gifts. We called it Spensive Gifts because the crap that they were selling was always overpriced. But yeah, they had the psychedelic posters. They had the little scented teepee-shaped incense burns that you could get. Little igniter. They look like cattails that you use to light up other stuff, and lava lamps and all kinds of hippie-related stuff. And that was your hangout?
Oh, yeah, man, I love it. Black light posters, plasma balls. Oh, golly. Yeah, man, we got all kinds of really cool plasma balls now. I want to get some plasma sticks. I don't know if you've seen these things, but they are awesome.
Gotta look up plasma balls. I don't know what they are. I have gotten a new type of black light that uses LEDs in the ultraviolet range. It's very cool because, they used to have to paint the inside of the fluorescent light, and the light output was very low compared to the wattage. Well, I've got, I think FEIT makes it. Lots of watts, lots of brilliance, and it makes the hands on the clock really light up. It's got those glow-in-the-dark hands on the clock. It's like, oh, yeah, remember that?
Man, I need one of those. I really need one of those. Yeah, man, you know how hard it is to... You know how hard it is to get a black light these days? I mean, even at Spencer Gifts.
That wasn't me.
Say again?
That wasn't me. Somebody else keyed up.
Okay. Somebody want to join us?
Don't forget, gentlemen, about the fabulous Freak Brothers, QSL.
Can you pick them up, Paul?
The Fabulous Freak Brothers. I think Boris was telling us about the Fabulous Freak. Is that another store chain?
They used to be in the back of Playboy magazine way back in the day. And they put out their own cartoon book at the end. And it was, if you're going to talk about tie-dye T-shirts and psychedelic lamps, I mean, you just can't forget about the Fabulous Freak Brothers. Check them out, they're online.
Oh, man. Okay, we got a player, Jim. What do you think?
I can't pick him up.
Really? No, he's quite strong in here. He's talking about in the back of the Playboy magazine were advertisements from a group called the Freak Brothers. And we're supposed to go look them up. So since I only looked at the pictures in those magazines, Boris, I am unaware. So I need to go educate myself.
Did you say the Freak Brothers?
Yeah.
The Fabulous Freak Brothers.
Sorry, yeah, there's a qualifier on there, Jim. The Fabulous Freak Brothers.
All right, the Fabulous Freak Brothers. All right, I'm going to check them out. I'm writing that down right now. FEIT LED UV bulb and the Fabulous Freakazoid Brothers. Yeah, I need one of those things because Paul, my mom has the coolest cabinet. It's a corner cabinet, glass doors, glass shelves, mirrors on the back, and it's full of Vaseline glass. And if you know what that is, then you're way cool. But it needs ultraviolet light, and it really looks badass with ultraviolet light in it. It's got a light fixture up in the top of the cabinet, okay, and there's a bulb in there now, but I need to find one. I need to find an ultraviolet bulb that'll fit in there because she really has a super fine collection of this genuine antique Vaseline glass, and the stuff looks beautiful under a black light, especially in the cabinet, you know, all mirrored up the way it is. I mean, it's really like, it looks like something from outer space, you know, it really does.
I've heard of that. Oh, the band's changing. Wow. You're quite trapping into Vermont, but I now faded down to S7. Huh. Guess the band's about to take its midday nap. But yeah, it's a standard screw-in base. What is it, A19 or something? And the LEDs are fairly pure color, so they don't have a lot of visible light spectrum. So if you were to screw that into the fixture in the cabinet, man, you would just get the entire effect.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to check that out right away.
Yeah, and I got to check out the advertisements for the Fabulous Freak Brothers.
I didn't get the connection between them and the UV lamp. Is there any?
No, it's just a sequence in the conversation.
Okay. All right. I thought, well, it might have had something to do with Spencer Gifts. And you're right, man. They have all the...
Yeah, that's me. Maybe it did. Because we were talking about psychedelic lava lamps and posters and stuff, and the Fabulous Freak Brothers might be like Spencer Gifts, where they have stuff that caters to hippies, although not many of them read Playboy, where their advertisement would have been. They had it right there.
Well, they have all kinds of lewd party jokes, you know, at Spencer Gifts. You know, a lot of gifts that you would give, like at a bachelor party, you know, a shower or something like that, baby shower, or, you know, stuff like that. You know, they got all kinds of cool stuff. It's an interesting store. But yeah, plasma ball, okay, picture a small Van de Graaff generator inside a glass ball filled with nitrogen, and you turn that sucker on and it makes lightning all over the inside of the ball, and when you put your hand on the ball, if you touch it, then you get that aura around your fingertips. You know, it draws the charge right to your hand, and it looks like rays, it looks like the force coming off of your hand. You know, it's really cool.
Oh, I got it. Yeah. It came right back to me. I always thought they were like a self-contained Jacob's ladder.
Yeah. They've got all kinds of stuff like that.
Well, that's cool. I would trade you this LED bulb for a plasma bulb.
Well, I told you, man, I got to check out these plasma sticks. You know, this is something new I haven't seen in person before. I've seen them on the internet, but yeah, I'm going to check them out in person. So yeah, we're fortunate. We have a Spencer Gifts here in the mall. I'm gonna stop over there here real soon. I need another lava. I can't see the one I have right now from the operating position unless I turn my head. And what I want to do is I want to have one that comes on that next to the amplifier here, so I can see it not. In fact, I'm going to feed it with the same variac that I use to feed the amplifier, and it'll only be on when the amplifier is on. So yeah, that's going to be cool. And I'm thinking turquoise, green, sea green, little blue, something like that.
Okay. It's going to be kind of hard to capture photographically, but maybe I can see it somehow or the other. You know, I wondered about, I know that Jacob's ladder ripped up the receiver. It made so much noise. I wonder if plasma balls make noise. Are they generators?
Oh, heck yeah.
I figures. Broadband static noise like that. Oh, well, you use an SDR anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, they make a lot of noise, man. DC to light. Oh, golly. Yeah, actually, I don't know what they're spectrum looks like from one of those. That's a good question, actually. I would have to think it was extremely broadbanded.
Yeah, think about it. It's just like a miniature lightning crash.
Absolutely.
And there's no tuned circuit in the thing either, so whatever the, probably the diameter of the ball that it uses is the other end of the conductor. That's going to be fairly small in wavelength, so I bet it makes a mess out of 10 meters and up.
Well, you know, that's a good question, actually, because it's a Van de Graaff accelerator. Van de Graaff generator. So, is it actually powered by a belt? I don't think so. Actually, it's probably powered by some kind of a DC flyback type thing going on. So it's probably got an operating frequency. It's not rectified, it's RF, definitely. So yeah, it's high frequency RF. So maybe it isn't broadbanded. Maybe it's only noisy around a certain spectrum. You know, that's actually an interesting question. You know, they put some kind of high frequency oscillator in there. You know, a square wave oscillator feeding a flyback transformer. I remember working on the TV shop. You know, you could draw a nice arc off the off the first and on the flyback. You know, you could draw about 7 or 8 inches of RF off that sucker easily. You know, totally harmless. Totally harmless. I mean, you can light your cigarette with it. You know, it was. We used to play with it, you know, in different ways in the shop. You know, perfectly harmless, like I say. So yeah, maybe it's.
And you're here to tell about it.
Maybe they're using used television flybacks.
Well, there ought to be plenty of them out there. Well, it's probably reached the peak at the dump. Everybody went LCD and plasma many years ago. KM4XG, VA3VJB. And hello to K2ORC, stroke 4, in Virginia Beach, among our shortwave listening audience this morning. I don't know how he's listening. Maybe he's at home listening, or maybe he's on one of the SDRs, but Paul's one of the previously quite active AMers, and in his current residence, I don't think has the kind of antenna that he wishes he had, but hello to Paul there, ORC.
Yeah, hello, K2ORC. In absentia. Shortwave listener, that's cool. How do you know that? Did he just sign into the remote?
No, I'm mental, and I got a telegraphic message from him.
Yeah, that's truly impressive. It really is.
No, he texted me on the other channel, and I saw it pop up while either you or I were talking, so I wanted to say something. I do think the band's gonna head for its nap time here, Jim, so I might sign with you here. The dog hasn't had, the one that's out here with me hasn't had his morning constitutional yet. The one in the house has, so I need to take him for a bit of a walk back here. It's been too damn hot to go out for our hikes. We usually take a 2-mile hike. And we got out earlier in the week, early in the morning, before it really got steamy hot. Now it's overcast, probably the same as yourself, 70 or 80% humidity, icky, sticky. So let me get him out and do his thing and probably say goodbye to 40 meters here for a few hours until it comes in this afternoon. This is an unusual time of day for you. I'm glad you joined us. I had called CQ, I guess, around, 8 o'clock, 8:30 or so, and pulled in Boris. Actually pulled in a guy at New Hampshire, N1 Baker Hotel Echo, who I could just barely hear. And then Boris called in after that, and I could actually hear the mechanical impact of the needle on the receiver. He was that strong. And then when he was celebrating Canadian Crap Out Day, Sean checked in from Ottawa. And we carried on there for a little while. And I think that's where you came along, so good to hear you on when the sun is warm. KM4XG, I'm going to get out of here, VA3VJB.
Yeah, K-Paul, always a pleasure, man. You know that. 73 for now. We'll catch up with you down the road. And, yeah, now that I know you're here in the mornings, I'll have to look for you if I'm ever vertical at that time in the morning. 73 for now. We'll catch you later. KM4XG. Have a good one.